Ethan Carter and his wife, Sophia Carter, lived a peaceful life in Seattle. To anyone looking from the outside, they seemed like an ordinary married couple. They lived in a comfortable house, drove modest cars, and spent most evenings together cooking dinner or walking along the waterfront. What nobody knew was that Ethan was hiding a secret worth billions. He wasn't just another businessman. He was the founder and owner of Carter Global Holdings, one of the most powerful investment companies in America. His net worth was discussed in financial magazines, but very few people had ever seen him in person. Ethan preferred privacy over attention. Sophia knew the truth, but she respected his decision to stay out of the spotlight. One Friday evening, Sophia received an invitation that instantly ruined her mood. It was an invitation to her cousin's engagement party in Chicago. The problem wasn't the party. The problem was her family. For years, Sophia's parents and older brother, Ryan Mitchell, had treated her like a disappointment. They came from a wealthy family and cared deeply about status. When Sophia chose to marry Ethan instead of a famous surgeon her parents had selected, they cut ties with her. They believed Ethan was poor. They believed he had nothing to offer. And Sophia never corrected them. As she stared at the invitation, Ethan noticed the tension on her face. "You don't have to go," he said gently. Sophia forced a smile. "I know, but if I keep running from them, they'll always control part of my life." Ethan sat beside her and took her hand. "Then we'll go together." She looked into his eyes. "You know they're going to insult you." He laughed softly. "They've been insulting me for 5 years without knowing who I am. I think I can survive one more night." Sophia couldn't help smiling. That was one of the reasons she loved him. No matter how cruel people became, Ethan never reacted emotionally. But she knew something her family didn't. Ethan wasn't weak. He simply chose peace. The following weekend, they flew to Chicago. The engagement party was being held at one of the city's most luxurious hotels. Expensive cars lined the entrance. Wealthy guests filled the ballroom. The moment Sophia entered, conversation stopped. Her parents immediately noticed her. Her mother, Victoria Mitchell, looked shocked. Her father, Richard Mitchell, looked annoyed. But the person whose expression turned darkest was Ryan. Her older brother had always hated the fact that Sophia refused to obey the family. As Sophia walked toward them, she felt Ethan squeeze her hand reassuringly. Neither of them knew that before the night ended, the Mitchell family would make the biggest mistake of their lives. And Ethan Carter would make sure they paid for it. The ballroom was packed with wealthy guests, business owners, lawyers, and local politicians. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling while waiters moved through the crowd carrying trays of champagne. Sophia tried to stay calm as she approached her family. Her mother crossed her arms. "So, you actually came." Sophia forced a polite smile. "Hello, Mom." Victoria barely acknowledged her greeting. Instead, her eyes moved directly toward Ethan. "And this is still your husband?" The question wasn't asked politely. It was asked like she was talking about an old mistake. Sophia immediately felt embarrassed. "Yes, Mom. This is Ethan." Ethan extended his hand professionally. "It's nice to see you again." Victoria ignored the hand completely. Several guests nearby noticed. The awkward silence grew. Then Ryan stepped forward. Ryan Mitchell was the type of man who believed money made him superior to everyone else. He looked Ethan up and down, still wearing simple clothes, still driving ordinary cars, still pretending to be nobody. Ryan smirked. "Wow, 5 years later, and you're still dressing like a middle-class accountant." A few people laughed. Sophia's face turned red. "Ryan, stop." But Ryan wasn't interested in stopping. He had spent years waiting for this moment. "You know, Sophia," he said loudly, making sure nearby guests could hear. "Dad offered you a future with one of the best surgeons in Chicago. Instead, you married this guy." More laughter. Ethan remained silent. Ryan interpreted that silence as weakness. "Big mistake. You couldn't even find a successful businessman." Ryan continued. "At least marry someone with ambition." Sophia clenched her fists. "Enough." But Ryan kept going. "What does he even do?" The room became quiet. Everyone waited for an answer. Sophia looked at Ethan. He simply smiled. "I work in investments." Ryan laughed so hard he nearly spilled his drink. "Investments?" He looked around the room. Everybody hears that. He's an investor. More laughter erupted. Nobody knew that some of the people laughing had unknowingly invested millions into Ethan's companies. Ryan leaned closer. You know what your problem is, Ethan? Ethan calmly replied, No. What is it? You don't belong in rooms like this. The insult landed heavily. Several guests looked uncomfortable. Sophia felt her heart breaking, not because of herself, because of Ethan. Despite everything he had accomplished, people still judged him based on appearances. For the first time that evening, Ethan spoke firmly. I think people reveal their character when they decide who deserves respect. Ryan rolled his eyes. And what's that supposed to mean? Ethan smiled. It means I'm learning a lot tonight. Ryan laughed again, but Sophia noticed something. The calmness in Ethan's eyes had changed. He wasn't hurt anymore. He was observing, calculating. And when Ethan Carter started calculating, someone always ended up losing. The Mitchell family just didn't know it yet. The engagement celebration continued, but the tension around Sophia's family kept growing. Word had already spread across the ballroom. Sophia had returned, and her husband was being publicly mocked. Guests whispered while pretending not to watch. Ryan, however, was enjoying every second. He had always believed humiliation was a form of entertainment. After dinner began, guests were assigned to tables. Sophia and Ethan found their names placed near the back of the room. Not by accident. Ryan had arranged it. The front tables were reserved for wealthy business owners and important guests. The message was clear. You don't belong with us. Sophia noticed immediately. Ethan. He looked at the seating arrangement and smiled. It's okay. No, it isn't. It really is. But deep down she knew it wasn't. This wasn't simple rudeness anymore. It was deliberate humiliation. As the evening continued, Ryan stood on stage to give a speech. At first it seemed normal. Then he spotted Ethan sitting quietly beside Sophia. A cruel smile appeared on his face. Tonight is about family. Several people applauded. Ryan continued. Family should help each other make good decisions. Sophia immediately sensed trouble. Unfortunately, Ryan said dramatically, some family members choose poorly. The crowd laughed. Ryan pointed directly toward Sophia. Some people throw away opportunities and marry failures. The ballroom exploded with uncomfortable reactions. Sophia stood up instantly. Ryan, but he wasn't finished. If my sister had listened to us, she'd be living a completely different life. Everyone stared. Sophia felt tears forming in her eyes. Not because of the insult, because she had spent years hoping her family would eventually change. Instead, they had become worse. Then something unexpected happened. Ethan slowly stood up. The entire room became silent. For years he had ignored every insult. For years he had walked away from conflict. But this time was different. Nobody insulted his wife. Nobody. Ryan smirked. Oh, look. The husband finally found his backbone. The crowd laughed nervously. Ethan looked directly at him. His voice remained calm. But somehow that calmness felt terrifying. You've spent the entire evening trying to prove you're important. Ryan's smile faded. Ethan continued. The truly powerful never need to announce their power. A strange silence filled the room. For reasons nobody understood, Ryan suddenly felt nervous. Then Ethan took Sophia's hand. Come on. Sophia looked confused. We're leaving. Ethan nodded. Yes. Ryan laughed again. Running away? Ethan stopped walking. For 1 second. Only one. Then he looked over his shoulder. No, Ryan. His eyes were ice cold. I'm giving you one final night to enjoy your success. Nobody understood what he meant. Not Ryan. Not Victoria. Not Richard. Not even Sophia. But before the week ended, every single person in that room would understand exactly what Ethan Carter meant. And by then, it would be far too late. The flight back to Seattle was quiet. Sophia sat beside Ethan, staring out the window while the lights of Chicago disappeared beneath the clouds. She felt ashamed. Not because of what Ryan had said. Not because of her parents' behavior. She felt ashamed because Ethan had been treated like garbage in front of hundreds of people simply because he chose to live a humble life. After several minutes, she finally spoke. I'm sorry. Ethan looked at her. For what? My family. He smiled softly. You don't owe me an apology for other people's choices. Sophia shook her head. They crossed every line. For a moment, Ethan didn't answer. Then he reached for her hand. "I know." The calmness in his voice should have comforted her. Instead, it worried her. Because after 5 years of marriage, Sophia knew something very important. The quieter Ethan became, the more dangerous the situation was. 3 days later, Ryan arrived at his office in downtown Chicago feeling better than ever. He had spent the last week bragging to friends about humiliating his sister and her husband. The story had become his favorite joke. But that morning, his assistant entered his office looking pale. "Mr. Mitchell." Ryan frowned. "What? We have a problem." "What kind of problem?" "The Henderson acquisition." Ryan froze. "What about it?" "They canceled." His stomach dropped. "Canceled? Impossible." The deal was worth nearly $50 million. It had taken months to negotiate. Ryan immediately grabbed the phone. The CEO refused to speak with him. 30 minutes later, another deal collapsed. Then another. Then another. By noon, nearly every major investor connected to Mitchell Enterprises had suddenly withdrawn support. Panic spread through the company. Executives rushed through hallways. Phones rang nonstop. Nobody understood what was happening. At exactly 2 p.m., Richard Mitchell called an emergency board meeting. The conference room was filled with terrified executives. Then the company lawyer entered carrying a folder. His face looked white. Richard stood. "Tell us what's happening." The lawyer opened the folder. Nobody spoke. The room became silent. Finally, he looked up. "I found the source." "Who is it?" Ryan demanded. The lawyer swallowed hard. Then he placed a financial report on the table. Every face turned toward the document. The room instantly froze. Richard's hands started shaking. Ryan stared at the page in disbelief. At the top of the report was a name connected to hundreds of billions of dollars. A name feared throughout corporate America. Ethan Carter, founder and CEO of Carter Global Holdings. The room went completely silent. Ryan laughed nervously. "This is a joke." Nobody laughed with him. The lawyer slowly shook his head. "It's not a joke." Richard looked sick. His daughter hadn't married a struggling investor. She had married one of the most powerful businessmen in America, and they had humiliated him publicly. The realization hit everyone at once. The room suddenly felt difficult to breathe in. Ryan remembered Ethan's final words. "I'm giving you one final night to enjoy your success." For the first time in his life, Ryan Mitchell felt fear. The next morning, the Mitchell family gathered inside Richard's mansion. Nobody touched their breakfast. Nobody spoke. The atmosphere felt like a funeral, because in many ways it was. The death of their empire had begun. Richard sat at the head of the table, staring at financial reports. Every page looked worse than the last. Stock values were collapsing. Investors were leaving. Banks were delaying approvals. Major partners were distancing themselves. And all of it traced back to one man, Ethan Carter. Victoria broke the silence. "We need to call Sophia." Ryan immediately nodded. "She'll talk to him." Richard looked exhausted. "Do it." Within minutes, Sophia's phone rang. She answered calmly. "Hello." Her mother's voice sounded unusually polite. "Sophia, sweetheart." Sophia instantly knew something was wrong. Her mother hadn't called her sweetheart in years. "What happened?" Victoria hesitated. Then she said the words, "We need your help." Sophia closed her eyes. She already understood. The truth had finally come out. "What kind of help?" Ryan grabbed the phone. "Tell Ethan to stop." Sophia's expression hardened. "Stop what?" "You know exactly what." "No." "Explain it." Ryan's voice rose. "Our investors are leaving. Our contracts are disappearing. Our company is under attack." Sophia remained silent. Ryan continued. "He's destroying us." Finally, Sophia spoke. Her voice was calm, the same calm Ethan always used. "Did he insult you publicly?" Ryan froze. "What? Did he spend years humiliating you?" Silence. "Did he treat your spouse like garbage?" More silence. For the first time, Ryan had no answer. Sophia ended the call. When Ethan arrived home that evening, he found her sitting on the balcony. The sunset painted the sky orange. For a few moments, they simply sat together. Peaceful, comfortable, the way they always were. Finally, Ethan asked, "They called?" Sophia nodded. "Yes." And a small smile appeared on her face. "I didn't help them." Ethan laughed softly. I never asked you to choose sides. I know. She looked at him. They made their choice years ago. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Sophia moved closer and rested her head on his shoulder. I love you. Ethan kissed her forehead. I love you too. That moment was the only peaceful thing happening in their world. Because hundreds of miles away in Chicago, the Mitchell family was watching their empire collapse. One contract after another disappeared. One investor after another walked away. One bank after another refused to help. And Ethan wasn't even finished. This wasn't anger anymore. This was judgment. The kind of judgment delivered by a man powerful enough to destroy an empire without raising his voice. The Mitchell family had spent years believing Ethan was beneath them. Now they were learning a painful truth. The man they mocked was the man holding their future in his hands. And he was slowly closing his fist. Over the next month, Mitchell Enterprises suffered one disaster after another. Every morning brought new bad news. Every afternoon brought another financial loss. Every evening ended with panic. The company that had spent decades building its reputation was collapsing faster than anyone thought possible. Employees started leaving. Top executives resigned. Shareholders demanded answers. The media began reporting on the company's sudden downfall. Inside the corporate headquarters, fear became part of daily life. Ryan barely slept. Richard looked 10 years older. Victoria spent her days calling old friends for help, only to discover that nobody wanted to get involved. Everyone knew the same thing. Ethan Carter was behind it, and nobody wanted to stand against Ethan Carter. One morning, Richard arrived at the office and found half the executive floor empty. Several key managers had resigned overnight. A few hours later, the bank officially froze a major line of credit. Without that funding, the company could no longer operate normally. The board of directors demanded an emergency meeting. For 3 hours they argued. For 3 hours they searched for solutions. There were none. Finally, one director spoke the truth nobody wanted to hear. This company is finished. The room went silent. Ryan slammed his fist on the table. No. The director looked directly at him. Your pride destroyed us. Nobody defended Ryan, because everyone knew it was true. His arrogance had started the war. His public humiliation of Ethan had triggered everything. The next week, Mitchell Enterprises officially filed for bankruptcy protection. News stations covered the story nationwide. Business analysts called it one of the fastest corporate collapses in recent memory. The Mitchell family watched from their mansion as reporters discussed their failure on television. The empire was gone. The wealth was disappearing. The reputation was destroyed. And for the first time in their lives, they understood what real consequences looked like. Far away in Seattle, Ethan sat beside Sophia on their porch drinking coffee. He wasn't celebrating. He wasn't smiling. He simply watched the sunrise. Because revenge had never been about pleasure. It had been about making sure nobody ever disrespected his wife again. The bankruptcy filing changed everything. People who once praised the Mitchell family now avoided them. Friends disappeared. Business partners stopped returning calls. Invitations stopped arriving. The same society that once admired them suddenly treated them like strangers. For the first time in their lives, they were powerless. And powerless people become desperate. One afternoon, Richard made a decision. We're going to Seattle. Ryan looked up. What for? Richard answered quietly. To apologize. Ryan hated the idea. His pride screamed against it. But he had no alternative. 3 days later, the entire family stood outside Ethan and Sophia's home. The house was beautiful, but surprisingly modest. Nothing about it suggested billionaire wealth. Victoria rang the doorbell. Sophia opened the door. The moment she saw them, her expression became cold. Nobody spoke. An awkward silence filled the air. Finally, Richard stepped forward. His voice shook. Sophia, we're sorry. Those words would have been impossible to imagine just months earlier. Sophia stared at him. Sorry for what? Richard lowered his head. For everything. Ryan swallowed hard. His pride felt like broken glass in his throat. Then he forced himself to speak. I'm sorry too. Sophia couldn't remember the last time her brother had apologized for anything. Ethan appeared beside her. The moment the family saw him, they became nervous. This wasn't the man they mocked at the engagement party. Now they knew exactly who he was. One of the most powerful men in America. Richard looked directly at Ethan. Please. Ethan said nothing. We made a mistake. Still nothing. Ryan stepped forward. We were wrong. Ethan finally spoke. You weren't wrong. The family looked confused. Ethan continued. You revealed who you really are. The words hit harder than any insult. Because they were true. Richard tried again. Please give us another chance. Ethan looked at Sophia, then back at them. No. One simple word. No anger. No shouting. Just finality. The family realized their forgiveness was not coming. And for the first time, they understood that some mistakes cannot be undone. After the failed apology, the Mitchell family returned to Chicago. Their lives continued downward. The mansion was sold. Luxury cars disappeared. Private memberships were canceled. The lifestyle they once considered normal became impossible. Ryan eventually accepted a management job at a small company. The salary barely covered his expenses. Every day he remembered how different life used to be. And every day he remembered the choices that destroyed everything. Meanwhile, Ethan and Sophia moved forward. For the first time in years, Sophia felt free. The constant pressure from her family was gone. The emotional burden had disappeared. One evening she and Ethan walked along the Seattle waterfront. The city lights reflected across the water. Sophia smiled. You know something? What? I spent years trying to earn their approval. Ethan listened quietly. And now? She laughed softly. Now I don't need it. Ethan wrapped an arm around her shoulders. Good. She stopped walking and looked at him. You protected me. Ethan smiled. That's my job. She shook her head. No. Tears filled her eyes. You protected my dignity when nobody else did. For a moment neither spoke. Then Ethan kissed her forehead, the same way he always did. Simple, gentle, real. At that moment Sophia realized something important. Her family had spent years chasing status, years chasing power, years chasing money. And in the end, none of those things brought happiness. But the man standing beside her had given her something far more valuable. Respect, loyalty, love. And unlike money, those things couldn't be taken away. A year later, life looked completely different. The Mitchell family was no longer part of high society. Their name no longer carried influence. Their business empire existed only in old newspaper articles. Everything they had built was gone. One afternoon, Ryan sat alone in a small apartment reading a business magazine. On the cover was Ethan Carter. The article called him one of the most influential entrepreneurs in the world. Ryan stared at the picture for a long time. Then he closed the magazine. For the first time, there was no anger, only regret. He finally understood that Ethan had never defeated him because of money. Ethan defeated him because of character. Months later, Sophia received a letter from her father. Inside was a simple message. I spent my life teaching my children that success is measured by wealth. I was wrong. The richest man in this story was the one who treated people with kindness. Sophia read the letter twice. Then she placed it aside. Some wounds heal, others leave scars. But she no longer carried hatred. That chapter of her life was over. That evening she sat on the balcony with Ethan watching the sunset. The same place where they had spent countless evenings together. Peaceful, happy, free. Sophia leaned against him. Do you ever regret it? Regret what? Destroying their company. Ethan thought for a moment. Then he answered honestly. I regret that they forced us into that situation. Sophia nodded. That was the difference between Ethan and people like Ryan. He never enjoyed hurting others. But he never allowed evil to go unanswered either. As the sun disappeared below the horizon, Ethan squeezed her hand. The battle was over. The revenge was complete. The people who judged others by status had lost everything. The woman they once treated as a disappointment had found happiness. And the man they called a failure had become the reason they learned the hardest lesson of their lives. Never underestimate a quiet man, especially when the person you hurt is the woman he loves.